Good evening. We are holding now on Daf Samach Beis Omen Aleph, Mirza Hashem. We're going to be finishing Perek HaNizokin, the fifth Perek, and starting Perek Shishi. So let's begin. We're holding the line. The words are Hey Rabbi S Ben HaMeshulim, and that's towards the top of the Amud. The line starts with Mursa. Moiraya. Okay. So now the Gemara says, the Gemara is going to judge now about the halachas of being mafresh chale and truma from payers of an amoritz. Now the Brisa says, and this is what it's brought down on the Tosefta, Heyud Rabbi S Ben HaMeshulam Mishum Rabbi Yechon Achiv. Rabbi S testified, Rabbi S the son of Meshulam testified in the name of Rabbi Yechon his brother, She'omar Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma, who said in the name of Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma, Ein oisen chalis am ha'oretz betara. You're not allowed to make the chalis of an am ha'oretz betara, which means that an am ha'oretz who wants to give his dough to a kneader, who's a chaver, who's a Talmid Chacham, and he wants to give his dough, and he says to the Talmid Chacham, Mafresh, take off challah for me from the dough that I'm giving to you, and do this b'tahara. So, the Amoritz is coming out to him and telling him, I don't know the halachas of being mafresh challah, so you do it for me and do it b'tahara. So the halacha is that you're not allowed to listen to him. We don't listen to this Amoritz. Why? Rashi says, because we suspect that this Isa, this dough, is now Tomei. It's the Amoritz who thinks that it's Tahar, and that's why he gives it to the Kohen. He gives it now to the Chaver. Now, if the Chaver is going to go ahead and be mafresh challah from this Isa betara, and he's going to give it to the Kohen is going to think that this Isa is Tahar. The problem is that it's not. So that's what he's saying, that ein oisen chalas amoritz betara, that an amoritz is not, the chaver is not allowed to take this isa from the amoritz and be mafresh betara. However, aval oisen isas chulav, but if the isa now is beginning of its dough, before it became ready for kneading, it's still chulin. So that betara, that he's allowed to take from the Amoritz be-tahara. And he's allowed to take from the Isa betara because it's still not huchsher to be mekabel tuma. Now, v'noitel himenu k'dei chala. And then, after he makes the dough for him, he can go ahead and take chala from him. Umanicha, and he places it either in it's different types of vessels, a basket or a vessel, which do not contact tuma. And when the Amoritz comes to take what was prepared for him, so the Amoritz could take both side the dough and the challah, and the one who prepared the dough does not need to be choishish that the Amoritz will impart tuma into the challah. So that's the din. Rabbi S Ben HaMeshulam said, in the name of who said that Rabbi Elazar ben Chasoma said that when it comes to a isa which is already hushah the kabel tuma, I suspect that the dough is already tummy, and therefore this that the Amoritz gives it to the chaver to be mafresh tuma, I suspect that it's already tummy. So a chaver is not allowed to do that. But if it's the beginning of the Isa, before it was Huksha the Kabal Tuma, he's allowed to accept the dough. And he could take the dough and he places it in the Kvisha or on Chusa. And when the Amoritz comes and takes it, we're not worried. He takes both of them, side the Chala and side the Isa. And we're not worried that he's going to impart Tuma in there. The next thing that Tosefta says, the Brisa says, Ve'ein oisin truma zeisov betara. An olive presser who happens to be a chaver, may not prepare oil from olives of an amoritz that are truma. Aval oisin zeisa chulim betara. So if the olives of an amoritz are truma, so that he's not allowed to prepare olives of an amaris that are truma, while keeping the oil in a state of tahara, because we suspect that the truma is already tummy. But when it comes to just chulav, when it comes to the ordinary olives, he can go ahead and keep the oil in a state of purity. And then he takes off truma, and then he places it in the keli of a chaver. And when the amaris comes and takes it, and he takes both of them. And I'm not worried that the olive, I'm not worried that the amaris will come and impart tuma in the truma. So the Gemara says, "V'tayim emai." What's the reason that the Chachamim were mekel? Rabbi Yechon says, "Mishum kidei chayav the gabel." It's for the sake of the kneader's livelihood, and mishum kidei chayav levadot, and for the sake of the olive presser's livelihood, they were mekel. So the Gemara says, "Utzricha," and the brisa that they said needs to tell me that the din applies side by the kneader and side by the olive presser. Why? Diash min and gabel. If it would only tell me the din of the case of the kneader, so I would say mishum d'lo nafish agri, since the kneader, his schar is not a lot, so he's considered a poor person. So they were makel over there. Aval bado the nafish agri, but by the case of the wine presser, which he makes a lot of money, then I would say the chachamim are not makel. Biashmin and bado, then if it only teach me the halachas of the bado, the wine, the presser, mishum d'lo shchiach leit, because it's not so common. It's seasonal. It only happens once a year. So I would say that since once a year, even though he makes a lot of money, he needs to have parnasa. So we give him that opportunity, even though he makes a lot of money each time he does it. Avogabel the shchiachle. But by the case of the kneader, which is very common, I would say the chacham are not mekel. Therefore, the price tells me these two heroes. Omar Mar. So now the Gemara focuses on the Tosefta. Omar Mar. Neitele meno kidechal manicha b'kivishoy ban chuso kushba mars litel neitele shtein ve'ene chayshesh. So now the Gemara asks, v'leichush dilma nogala. Why am I not worried that the Amoritz will touch the chala and be mekamit? How could the Chachamim be mekel? So the Gemara says, because we tell the Amoritz, chazi si I nagda be hadr lativla. If you're going to touch the chala, then the isa will become now tevel. So we warn him beforehand, and he doesn't want his food to become tevel. So maybe he doesn't care that it will become tevel. And for the Gemara, if the kavana of the Amoritz is to be misak in his dough, because that's why he's coming to the chaver who's a kneader. How could you say he doesn't care about it? Now, Amar Mar, the Brisa said, and he takes side the shemen of the chulin and the truma, and I'm not worried that the Amoritz will impart tuma in the truma. Why am I not worried that the Amoritz will touch the truma b'shegig? In the case of the chala, he has a hecker over there. It's in a kvisha, it's in a chusa, which is not the derech to go and put this dough there, so he'll know that not to touch it. But in the case of the truma, maya kere isle, what hecker is there when you put it in the kelim of the chaver? So the Gemara says the manach le b'klei galalim, talking about that he places the wine guy places the truma in a keli which is like manure over there, and kli avonim or nekli avonim or kli adama, which is not the common to actually use these kelim. And through this, the Amoritz will realize not to touch it. Why are you saying the case is dafka by a chaver? I feel the Amoritz nami. Even in Amoritz, this keli is not makabel tumah. So even Amoritz should be allowed to place it in there. Why are you telling me dafka by the case of the chaver? So the Gemara says, this is what the Tana means to say, that the kelim shal Amoritz, you place it in the kelim of Amoritz, which is not makabel tumah. For example, the kli kalolim, kli avonim, or kli adama, which are kelim, which are ru'uyim li'ishtamish v'hen chaver, or is makbid on dini tumah v'tara. Then the Mishnah said, "Machzikin de nochrim b'shvis." You're allowed to help a goy work in the field in the year of shvis. So, for example, machzikina, and you're allowed to help a goy in the avodah of the field. He said, "Ein oidrin im oivit kichavim b'shvis." You're not allowed to dig with the goy, his field, by shvis. And you're not allowed to double, you're not allowed to say shalom shalom to a goy. So we see clearly from this statement that it's forbidden to help a goy with work in a field by the shvis. So the Gemara answers and says, Lo tzricha. It's not what the Mishnah means. What the Mishnah means to say is, Lo tzricha lemembra lahu lo tzricha, rather lemembra lahu achzuki ba'alma. We're talking about not that you're helping the goy actually in the field, but you're just giving him words of encouragement. You're giving him and saying you should be matzliach. It's like the minhag of Rabbi Yehuda said, he would tell the goyim, like, chazak, tischasku. Sheishes amar lahu, asharta, he would say also an expression of, like, say chazak, they say in Hebrew, tachzik chazak, or titchazek. So that's the expressions that they used. And we did not double shalom for a goy. Rabbi Chisda says, Rabbi Chisda maktim v'yoyev lehu shlama. Rabbi Chisda would be maktim to a goy and say shalom before the goy would bless him. And Rav Kana amar lehu, Rav Kana would say shalom lamar shalom for your honor. Now the Mishnah said, "V'shalom b'shleimen," you're allowed to ask a goy shalom a whole year. So the Gemara says, "Hashti achzuki machzikinon," if you're allowed to be mechazik with words. Something which is also for the yid. For example, a yid cannot go ahead and actually work karka b'shvis, like we just learned. So is it needless to say that you're allowed to ask him shalom the whole year? For sure, it should be mutter. Why should it be usher? So Rabbi Yema says, we're talking about a case. Ella, it's telling us that it's mutter to ask the shalom of the goy yom chagam on their holidays, and we're not worried that he's going to that you'll come to the start celebrating the goyish holidays with them. You're not allowed to go into the house of a goy by his holiday and give him shalom. And in Matzo Bashuk, and if you find the yid in the shuk, so you can if the yid finds the guy in the shuk, so he can give him like shalom with a low voice and like a voice which is serious. So we see as that it's mutter to say shalom to the guy even on his holiday, as long as you don't do it like the Brisa said that you're going to go in be imchagev v'itn shalom. You can do it like with a soft voice and with a serious voice. Okay, let's continue. Second, sorry. Okay, let's continue. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda have a Yosvi. Rav Huna and Rav Chisda were sitting. Cholev Azol Geniva. So this Geniva was passing by. So one of them, Rav Huna said to Rav Chisda, they said to each other, Nekum Mekame, let us stand up in front of Geniva. The Bar Uyin, because he's a Ben Teda. So Amaloi, so his friend said, Mekame Palga Nekim. Are we going to stand before somebody who's a Baal Machlekes? In the meantime, while they were speaking, so Geniva passed by. Geniva told Rav Chisda, Shalom Aleichem Malki, Shalom Aleichem Malki, Shalom Aleichem Kings, Shalom Aleichem Kings. So Amalei, so Rav Huna and Rav Chisda said, how do you know the Chachamim are called kings? So Amalei, he said, it says in Mishlei, Bi Malachim Yimlechu. So he says, people who are involved in Chachma are called Malachim. So Amalei, so they said to him, and where do you know that you're supposed to double shalom by a king? So where do you know that you double shalom by the king? Like it says, so we see that Moshe doubled shalom to David HaMelech. So Amalei, so they told him, why don't you test something? So he said, you're not allowed to taste anything till the master gives his behemoth food. Remember, like it says, just like Hashem. So the point was that just like Hashem gives sustenance to the behemoths before the Tzarchei Adam, so too we have to go in the ways of Hashem. Okay. Hadvan Allah Hanizokin. Baruch Hashem, we concluded now the 5th chapter of Hanizokin. Okay, let's begin now the 6th parak of Ha'omer. And let's begin now. The Mishnah says, Ha'omer, if the husband tells a shliach, he's kabel getzel ishti, be mekabel this get for my wife, or yehoylech getzel ishti, or take this get to my wife. Now, as we explained in the beginning of the Masechta, there are 2 types of shlichus. You have a shliach. You have a shliach lehilacha, which means the husband actually goes ahead and appoints a shliach to go and give the get to his wife. And then you have a shliach lekabbalah, a shliach which is mekabel the get. Usually the husband, and the Gemara is going to discuss this later, the husband sends a shliach, that's a shliach lehilacha, and the woman who goes ahead and receives the get, or sends a shliach, that's called a shliach lekabbalah. So what happened here? The husband tells the shliach lehilacha, "Iskabel gets ishti, go and be makabel this get for my wife. Oh, yehelech gets ishti, or go and deliver this get for my wife." So the halacha is im rotza lachser. If he wants to retract, yachser he can retract. Calls man the get to not actually go into the hands of the wife. He can retract the get. Now, ha'isha sha'amra iskabel li Gittin. Now, if the woman tells ishliach, be mekabel the get to me, and the husband gives now the get to the wife, to the shliach lekabbalah, so halacha is in rotza lachser. If the husband now wants to retract, halacha is lo yachser, but he's not allowed to retract. Why can he not retract? Because halacha is once a shliach lekabbalah accepts the get, it's like the wife accepted the get. So that's the first din. When it comes to shliach lehilacha, the husband could retract, calls man the get to not reach the hands of the wife. When it comes to shliach lekabbalah, once the husband gives it to the shliach lekabbalah, he cannot go ahead and retract. The fikach, therefore, im omar le abal, if the husband tells the shliach of the woman, I do not want you to be mekabel the get. Ella hoylech v'tein law, but rather you be the shliach lehilacha and give it to her. If he wants to retract it, yachser he can be retracted because calls man the shliach. Then I give the get to the wife, it's not a problem. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, af ho'imeres, even if in a case that the woman says to the man, Taili Giti, the woman tells another man, Taili Giti imrotza lachser, then la yachser. Why? Because it's like the case of the iskabeli Giti, and therefore it's like she accepted it already. The Gemara now is going to discuss now the second case in the ratio of the Mishnah. If the husband tells the shliach, hoylech gets al ishti, so the din is he could retract, calls man, the woman did not accept the get. So Rav Acha tells Rav Ashi, Taima, what's the reason? From the Mishnah, it's mashma, what's the reason why the husband could retract? The loy shavisi, because the woman did not appoint this man of the husband to be a shliach. Now, I'm sorry. So what's the reason why she could retract? Is because she did not make him a shliach lekabbalah. But if the woman would be mamana this person as a shliach lekabbalah, and then the husband would say, let's say the husband, it's mashma that in the case of hoylech ketzel ishti is because the husband went ahead and made this guy a shliach leilacha. Let's say this woman would have told this guy, let's say the woman would have went ahead and made a shliach lekabbalah, and then the husband said hoylech ketzel ishti, so it would be mashma that rotza lachser. If the husband wants to retract, no, lo yachser, he's not allowed to retract. Shma mina, so l'cheiro, we can learn from this Mishnah that that hoylech, when you say the words hoylech, is kizochi dami. When you say go and bring this davar pleni, it's considered like you say basically zocha davar zel pleni, and therefore, which is a big machlekes of hoylech kizochi dami. But I see from here that hoylech is kizochi dami. So the Gemara says, "Lo, you cannot bring a raya. I can tell you that hoylech, when you say the words hoylech, is lav kizochi dami. When you say hoylech, it's not considered like zochidami. And if the husband tells the shliach hoylech, he can go ahead and retract, even if the woman made this person the shliach l'kabbalah. Why? Because hoylech, when he says hoylech, he's being oiker the shlichus, her shlichus, and he's basically appointing this shliach to be his shliach now. And v'skabel gets to the ishti is shliach. And the Mishnah needs to tell me this case that the husband speaks with the man who was not the woman's shliach to tell me the chiddush that when the husband says he skabels gets to the ishti, he could retract. Why? And I would think that in this lashon hoylu ba'lav bar shavish shliach kabbalah, since it's not the koyach of the husband to appoint he cannot appoint for the woman a shliach l'kabbalah. So I would think that since it's not in the power of the husband to be memana for the woman a shliach l'kabbalah, so afagav the mata gita liyod le'avagita, I would think that even if the get comes to her hand, it would not be considered a good get. Therefore, it teaches us that when the husband uses the expression of iskabel, the kavanah is that you should be makabel the get and take this get to my wife. So there is proper minyan shlichus for the get. And that's why the get is considered a good get. Okay, now the Mishnah Gemara says, Tanah, we learned in our Mishnah, if the woman says, Iskabali giti, the woman says to the man, be makabel the get. The husband now gives the get. The din is, if he wants to retract it, but he's not allowed to retract. Now, so the Gemara says, my love, what do we see? The kavanah of the Mishnah is that the husband is not allowed to retract, lo yishna kabbalah and lo yishna haylacha. Whether the shliach says to the woman, iskabel get zeli ishti, or in the case of haylach get zeli ishti. So we see that when you say haylach get zeli ishti, it's considered like iskabel get zeli ishti. And if you're not going to say that, so when the husband says haylach, then the chayri can go out. So we see from here that hoylech is kazachi. So the Gemara says, loy, that's not what it means. It means a kabbalah. It's going on the kabbalah. Tashma, come, I'll bring you a raya. Lefika, therefore, if the husband says to the shliach of the woman, iash to kabbalah, ella, lefika, the husband tells the shliach of the woman, iashi, I don't want you to be makabel get rather go ahead and give it to her in Rotzalasser. If he wants to retract, Yasser, he could. So the Gemara says, time, what's the reason why the husband could retract is the Omar, because he said, I do not want to be makabel for the get. But if he did not say Yashi and Rotzalasser, if he wants Yasser, he could retract. What do we see from here? The Gemara says, no, Dilma, maybe we're talking about a case, in the case that he said Halach. So you have no raya that hoylech is kazachidami. Gemara says pshita ish have a shliach leilacha. It's obvious that a man could be a shliach leilacha for the husband to go and be melech the get to the wife. Why shekain bal melech get the ishte? Because a husband could be melech the get to the wife. So therefore he can have a shliach. Ish have a shliach lekabbalah, and a woman could be a shliach lekabbalah. Why she can isha? Because a woman is mekabbalas gittin miyad baila. However, the question is, ish the Kabbalah, can a man be a shliach the Kabbalah, or isha leilacha, could a woman be a shliach leilacha? What's the din? So Mar says, Tashma, I'll bring a raya from the Mishnah. Ha'omer iskabel get zeli ishti. If a person says to the shliach, be makabel the get from my wife, or heiler get zeli ishti, so halacha is, and yachzer, if he wants, he could retract. However, if he says, if the Isha Shamra iskabel get iskabel li giti, and Ratzalazer leyachser. So the Gemara says, my love, it must be that what's this Mishnah speaking about? Bechad shliach. We're talking about that there's one shliach. Shmamino, what do we see from here? Kosher lekabel, kosher leilacha. Shliach could be sai, a man could be sai, a shliach lekabel, sai, a shliach leilacha. So the Gemara says, love dafke, but I can tell you that it's talking about b'shnei shluchim, two shluchim. Toshma lefigach emamar le'abal iavshi shetekabel elo heidach v'ten lo im rotzalachser yachser. Now, the chad shlichu. This for sure we're talking about that it's one shliach, because the husband says, if the husband says to the shliach of the woman, I don't want you to be a shliach kabbalah, but heidach v'ten lo, So that's talking about there's one shliach, and the husband can go ahead now and take the shliach for the woman and switch it over. So the Gemara says this. You could at least paskin from this that ish have a shliach l'kabbalah, that a man can be a shliach l'kabbalah. Shekain av mikabel get libitoi ktana, because the father can be mikabel get for the ktana. Now, in the case of Ishla, lochati loch mai. So Amar Amari Tashma, come and bring a raya af noshim sheina manas limer meis baili. Even a woman who's not believed to say meis baili, and manas lahavi gita is believed to bring the get. So the Gemara says v'hasam helochi. And over there, we're talking about helacha. And nevertheless, we see that the woman could be, it's kosher to be her ashtech helacha. Amar Ravashi miseifa nami shmamina dektani seifa. Ha'isha asma via as gita uvad she tzrich lemer b'fanei nichtav b'fanei nechtav. So from here we learn that a woman could be a shliach le helacha.